This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
How is personalization affecting the user journey in search today?
I think what I've noticed is that, AI tools in general are sort of getting that personalization that you need without even asking it, which is pretty awesome. And I know you mentioned Claude and stuff. Like, I think Claude is just, for me, Claude is like the best one in terms of an SEO getting it to function and do what you want in terms of stuff. It's like super, super powerful. So yeah, it's quite,
Let me double click on that with you're talking about using Claude or Claude Code to help you execute or research SEO campaigns. Let me just ask you that, top level question. How are you using your favorite LLM to help you with SEO?
Yeah, like I think fundamentally, like I feel like anyone that's not using AI for a lot of the old like donkey work is missing out. Like, I think, so for example, just something we're using it for like quite regularly is, doing some like competitor keyword gap analysis. And then you obviously want to break those keywords down into themes and stuff. And you need the tagging of the keywords and stuff to kind of present that data and tell that story. So obviously handling hundreds and thousands of keywords and sort of tagging them up is just not, once upon a time in like SEO where you'd manually craft like the metadata and tag those keywords and stuff. That's something that you definitely need to feed the AI with. I think you need to, it still is rough around the edges, definitely, but will allow you to kind of like, I almost think it is like something you would have done like 15 years ago in that like keyword metadata space is something that AI has a pretty good stab at getting right for you now. So like all the stuff like that, I think like even with like metadata, like, for example, getting like meta descriptions, I think meta descriptions are quite low risk and stuff. And then obviously kind of like proofing like titles and stuff like that. But like where I see its biggest value is, like, I genuinely do believe, depending on the client, is like the content it writes. So every piece of content does need a human to review it. But I believe like that utilizing AI to, when you feed it the relevant keywords and, internal linking and stuff like that, depending on the subject matter, it can just supercharge your content efforts to a point where I think, depending on the client, I think it's low risk for some clients. Like, we've got e-commerce clients where, quite honestly, all you need to do is provide surrounding copy and link to the relevant subpages. And I don't think there's really much risk in what AI is producing. However, if you're getting it to obviously give its opinion or blog article or whatever, that obviously needs more craft and like research to do it. So I think the biggest lift it gives you is a lot of that kind of like keywords on a page, like sense of copywriting. Yeah, and then I mean, otherwise, like kind of like general like internal stuff, like, clean up this, put it into sort of like summarize, like, actually, I mean, all that sort of like admin-y type stuff is great as well.
Yeah, there's the content creation piece, which LLMs are becoming better and better at. Highly depends on the training data that you give it and, the
Yeah.
context and the rules and parameters and all of that. I'm curious what your client intake looks like for how you train them. Maybe there's not like a huge, I don't know, 30-day onboarding cycle for a new client, but I would imagine you have to have some sort of brand voice guidelines. What have you found is effective in helping guide the LLM to create higher quality output for SEO?
So I think you, this is where it's sort of like, I think in terms of when you kind of look at an initial client coming on board, I still think you've got some core like CO projects you need to deliver. For me, it's sort of like initial audit of like, kind of like performance and technical audit, like in terms of any like huge opportunities. It's the same with like content gaps and also competitor,
Mm,
like a competitor landscape audit. I think they're all essential because I feel like with particularly when crafting content, I feel like it can be quite overlooked, like not doing that competitor landscape piece up front, because I feel like
mm,
you almost have a vision on where something can go
mhm,
before you've even kind of laid down like points on the roadmap. And I feel like that is something you can help the LLMs with in terms of crafting the content. So you can give it particular keywords, but then you can also kind of like add another instruction to it to sort of say, um, we want to focus on this particular topic of keyword. We've noticed that like, um, this type of content from these competitors has like resonated well in the past. And then you
mm.
can go into kind of more and more details and stuff. So I think sort of giving like working examples, any kind of like best practice like structure or tone or yeah, just anything like that really just helps craft it a little bit better.
Hey, we hope you're enjoying the coffee and the conversation so far. This show is powered by Digital Web Solutions, and if you've ever wondered how the biggest brands actually build authority, this is it. DWS has a massive network of over 250,000 publishers, real sites that help you rank on Google, and more importantly, stay visible in AI search. It's the heavy lifting most teams just can't do on their own. As a thank you for listening, they're offering an exclusive free strategy call just for our eCoffee listeners. It's a great way to map out your authority plan for 2026. Just click the link below to book yours and see how they can help scale your brand. All right, now let's get back to the show.
I'm curious what your thoughts are, and we don't have to stay on this for too long if it's not super relevant, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on, like, let's say voice search, because
Yeah,
that's a big piece that's emerging. I'm very interested in voice search. I think it's the future.
yeah. Like, if I'm being perfectly honest, I think it's something that was in my experience, it was talked about more. It's obviously growing because
Mm,
people are just using voice everywhere. But in terms of sort of like having a view on it and having a response to it for clients, I don't I haven't ever, well, apart from the beginning stage, I haven't recently had anyone sort of ask what we're doing
mm,
around voice search. I
mhm,
feel like, um, yeah, like I feel like the queries and stuff we're optimizing for and across like LLMs and like AI overviews, I feel like we're answering enough of those queries. So if I'm perfectly honest, I've kind of taken a little bit of a back seat on voice search,
yeah,
but that's not to say that that's right. Um, but that's just something that's, yeah, not something particularly focused on. But like in the past and stuff, when it was kind of like just announced and like all voice search was kind of growing and stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's got a basic level of trying to kind of match the sort of keyword insights and the keyword targeting with, you know, comp copy that was being returned or content that's being returned via voice prompts as well, and sort of having that on your website, but also like ensuring that that could return as a voice prompt. But that's very kind of basic level.
mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, if you're tracking the prompts and you're understanding how to get your clients to become more visible in AI overviews and LLMs, I'm curious when you kind of evaluate the effectiveness of your campaigns internally, like what are you looking for that actually carries weight outside of just, standard reporting SEO metrics?
Uh, yeah, well, I mean, I think this is for me. If we're saying the standard SEO reporting metrics are, like organic traffic or ranking visibility and stuff, and we are sort of saying that perhaps organic revenue and organic leads is perhaps not.
Mm,
It could be, it could not. It depends on your client. But I think overall that is the biggest shift I am working towards, have seen, and how we should report. Like, the age of organic traffic is dying out.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, all KPIs, we need to, like, organically, I felt like we could pivot towards like traffic and ranking visibility. And that was the kind of core measure you show for your clients. But quite commonly now, you can be acquiring higher organic revenue with much less traffic year on year. So it's sort of repivoting those KPIs and sort of saying like your bottom line as an overall business is also like the most important metric to us. I know it probably was, you could say it was important in the past, but I feel like you would lean on the organic traffic element a bit more. So, sort of I don't know really, in terms of like those internal stuff, I feel like sort of getting that understanding of like profitability, like average order value, all of that stuff that you are picking up on like month by month internally, for me is like the kind of biggest measure of sort of success for our clients. And if you're not tracking that, like, you absolutely should be,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like there's going to be a point of time where you're just going to come unstuck if you're just reporting on keyword visibility and traffic,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. Metrics are changing and they're going back to, I mean, they always should have been on business value, but I think SEOs will think that, oh, I was hired to drive these SEO metrics like traffic and impressions and,
Mhm.
even down to like click through rate has an impact. But yeah, really what we're hired to do as SEOs by a company or by, someone who's hiring us for consultants is to drive that revenue via organic search platforms. Something I think that's really interesting is where, at least from my perspective, we're seeing more of a holistic shift where SEO, paid, organic social media, email marketing, these are all kind of like they're starting to cross reference each other a lot more. And search is kind
Yeah.
of like the core, the foundation of where these other channels, these other departments can gain intelligence in order to make it, um, you know, more to make their campaigns more effective. If a company or a business, let's say they are looking to hire outside help, at least in search marketing, but they already have, let's say, a paid social team, an email marketing team, or maybe it's just a small team, someone who's kind of doing everything. And they wanted to bring Alex in and say, take a look at our business. Something's not working. We don't necessarily know what it is. What's kind of like the diagnostic steps, like maybe 1, 2, 3 that you're going to go through to help find the leaky bucket? Like, where are the holes?
Yeah, sure. Do you mean that across like everything, or specifically within like organic, or?
Yeah, I would say if somebody says like SEO is something that we're missing, like,
Yeah.
how
Okay.
can you help us? What are the first things that we need to do in terms of your expertise?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I feel like, I think I kind of answered my own question in a way when I said organic anyway, but I feel like that doesn't matter. I feel like the starting point is you look at the performance across all channels and you
Mm,
actually validate a client's assumptions. I think that's quite common, that you can sort of just run with something a client has kind of told you and focus on your point of data and what needs investigating. But actually, you do need to kind of like take yourself from the very beginning and just literally walk through their problems and validate them. So
hmm,
yeah, I think firstly be looking at that, like, and also kind of understanding first and foremost, what is the trusted data? Like, does it look like there's attribution issues at foot? Um, like, is there anything called kind of like skewing the data? Are there like spam bots and stuff that are just massively increasing numbers? I think once you've got a kind of, well, you can determine what the baseline is or should be. Yeah, I think you first of all sort of interrogate that data a little bit more. So look
hmm,
with the existing pages, what if this is a page which has like its top products or top keywords associated to it, why is it got such low traffic or revenue, and sort of like prioritize those areas. I think you then got to do at the very basic level, even if you're not doing a full audit, you kind of just need to balance the performance of those pages around with like, are there any glaring technical errors? Like, is there a whole portion of the website not being indexed? Even understanding in the current market, like, are you visible at all across LLMs? Like, do you get completely outranked for a competitor on a certain topic, which was particularly topical in the last like 2 or 3 months? And that could say that, like, you know, you are not visible across LLMs, and you're also having a double impact from the fact that quite recently your competitors have got a voice on this or whatever else. But that, yeah, and that is, so I think it's though, for me, that's, and the third thing is really the competitor landscape and however you look at that. So for me, it's like review of existing performance, like identifying any kind of like glaring indexation errors, and then looking what's happening in the market. And I think that can be done looking at specific SEO keyword tools, but also across LLMs as well. I feel like when you cover all of those areas, I feel like you are able to sort of diagnose the clear problems if there are some, or at the very least sort of identify where the opportunity is. And that's pretty much like the approach I apply when kind of looking at any website that needs like attention, really.
Starting with the data and, as you said, interrogating the data and finding a baseline. It
Yeah.
seems like if someone were to come into an organization and just take what the hiring entity says at face value, it seems like
Yeah.
that would be an easy thing to miss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good that you said that.
Yeah. And there's sort of there's several ways to do it. Like, there's not necessarily a right answer, but I think, one thing that's a good and bad thing about the SEO industry is like there's so many tools, but also that can be a bad thing sometimes, but also they all to a certain degree should be taken with a pinch of salt. But I'm a believer in, like, sometimes if you triangulate free tools that give you the same trend, you can kind of like categorically nail down that this, some are rough around the edges, but through virtue of using multiple tools to kind of prove one argument, that itself is almost like a bit of like quite a good business case. So I feel like even if you've got, you know, issues with like GA and stuff, I feel like even looking at multiple tools can kind of help you sort of say what the correct data should be, or what it should look like, or at least inform you of trends to be looking further into.
What about, technical SEO still has, now it's evolved a little bit from robots TXT to LLMs TXT, and
Mm.
it's more than just crawlability of a page. Like, what else are you looking at in terms of like technical SEO to help with this visibility and, like, you know, make sure that we're we're getting what we want out of the website?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there are a few more like basic technical stuff, like the fact like Schema, for
Mhm.
example, is just an absolute must in terms of optimization, and then sort of LLMs and rich results picking that up.
Mm.
But this is where sort of in the world of like AI and geo and stuff like that, I just I just think there's just so many core SEO principles, technical SEO principles, that if you don't do them, like your visibility in LLMs and and whatever else will just fall over. So for example, you've got about like marking up, and and everything else. But I feel like internal linking, for example, if you're
Mm.
a e-commerce shoes page, you
Mhm.
should have internal links to facets around color, size, the next most related category. Like, your page needs to be crawled in a way which is fully expected in terms of like its makeup, its niche, its industry.
Mm.
And actually, like, technical SEO and ensuring like the IA and the linking structure, and like even all those facets and stuff that they link to are being hit by bots and being crawled effectively. That's all crucial to sort of returning the correct page in LLMs as well. So I don't know. I think to kind of hang one hat on it, I suppose, as well, is like the internal linking is just massively, massively important, which I feel should be looked at not in an LLM sense at all, just in your traditional SEO sense, and optimize for that first and foremost. Yeah, in a way, if you want it, because I feel like LLMs will be looking at that in similar ways as well.
With internal linking, I mean, has anything, I think you started to open this up, but has anything changed now that you're trying to optimize for LLMs? Has anything about the internal linking structure changed, knowing that we're trying to capture semantic relevance, not necessarily just keywords?
Yeah, no. My opinion on LLMs is that, like, if you would almost think of it as like like a dissertation, like you regularly reference things that back up your points. I feel like LLMs absolutely love that. So if you've got a page that, you know, works to all of the SEO requirements, good internal linking, everything else, I think so for a good example of a good web page, like making sure that the satellite content that links to that or industry publications is there and present, because I feel like that is what LLMs like. And that's why I feel like the biggest sort of influence we can have now on traditional SEO injecting itself into LLMs is just making sure that the internal linking goes beyond the sort of the essential, like linking to color and size and all that, but making sure that there's a real strong sort of link to sort of authoritative sources, bodies, research, even in the sort of like blandest type of e-commerce pages. I feel like that's how we're sort of seeing a bit more of those pages in LLMs, the ones that are visible, are sort of doing stuff like that. Yeah.
When you say satellite content, is that something, I mean, does it have relation to, let's say, if you did a digital PR piece and then you know, reached out to an authoritative site that maybe mentions you, a brand mention? I mean, how are you thinking about off page? And am I getting that right? That satellite content is kind of, that's what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of mean a little bit more specific. That is probably a bit less sort of like around the PR angle, more around like related content and like related research studies and stuff. So, for example, you know, if you have a page, like let's use the example, e-commerce page around trainers again, like it may be that before that was just a product page, whereas you want to make sure that, like, as well as giving more contextual relevance to the page, that you are sort of linking to an article which is sort of like top 10 trainer trends of, do you know what I mean? Of like, it's just more around, I see it more as that sort of like typical sort of like content blog articles, but depending on the keyword itself, it can be like research studies and anything else. So it could be a whole range of things.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. I mean, it's good for me to have the clarification to understand, you know, obviously what other agencies are
Yeah.
doing. What do you think SEOs, like in today's day and age, I hate that I hate that phrase. But what do you think that SEOs now are getting wrong? Like what are they still banging on about that is outdated or it's no longer relevant or
Okay, so the one that I keep seeing that I just think is a non-event, and I've been caught out once with it in like 15 years, is link hygiene, like toxic links and stuff like that. I don't think is a thing. Like I feel that the Google knows a toxic link. You shouldn't be investing hours into cleaning up links, in my opinion. I feel like it's once in a while. The only reason I feel that you might want to do that is to be reactive. So I had one example for a previous client years ago where in Search Console, when they actually showed the kind of queries coming in, that it was just this Arabic keyword which didn't match, and it was hundreds and thousands and stuff. And it was like you could then trace that link, that word back to an anchor text link, which was dropped over hundreds of thousands of sites. So then you're like, right, well, it's coming through Search Console and it's looking strange. So actually, maybe we'll just say all of these sites are spammy, and and that worked, and that got rid of the sort of query coming in. But other than that, I think it's completely a dead tactic. I think I would say as well is, like, I know I kind of front started this conversation about how LLMs are growing and stuff, and I think the market share of Google's in at risk. But I think what is really risky, I'm seeing a lot of agencies stuff, is almost brandishing GEO and work on AI. I feel like as its own entity, in my opinion, is absolutely still an extension of SEO. And if you kind of focus, so for example, if you had a budget and you focused it all on, adapting your content so it matches all of your competitors' citations in LLMs, yet you don't actually address core, like, technical indexation and like internal linking, I just think it's just completely wasted. So you can't let that almost like overtake the traditional SEO. It needs to be an arm of your SEO. I think it can become a bit, there's risk of it becoming a vanity thing than it actually being something that is, in my opinion, still housed within your SEO strategy. So I'd say those things really.
And then, I mean, yeah, I think what you're saying is like that SEO is still the foundation, and LLMs are, ChatGPT is no more than 10, sometimes depending on the industry, 30% of, of traffic. It's growing, sure, but will it replace Google organic traffic? I mean, now we're back at the top of the conversation, right? Of democratization of search. On the flip side of this, instead of what are SEOs getting wrong, I'm curious what you think in the next 12 months, the skill sets, which skill sets are going to define the leaders in search marketing versus, what are the skill sets?
Yeah. So I just think it is all about AI, in my opinion, and it's how you partner with it effectively. It's not something that I don't think is a negative at all. Like, for me, it's been the most exciting change in SEO and search ever since like the black hat link building days and stuff, when all of it overnight, like, sites disappeared and got link penalties and everything else.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know, like, in my opinion, sort of, you need to know its boundaries, if that makes sense. And I feel like those SEOs that know its boundaries I think you're gonna hit a few bumps on the way to kind of understand its boundaries. So, for example, like, I don't believe that necessarily that, like, some people can have a bad stigma about AI generating its content, but for so many of those industries out there, it can be your fast ticket to get hundreds of landing pages, fine, and search engines may not like 20% of them, but if they like 80% of them, you've jumped from here to here, and you've kind of gone from here, and you hit a bump along the road. And I think it's like using it to sort of scale up your efforts, but also knowing its boundaries. And I feel like those SEOs that can get a grasp of something which at least makes them move the dial a little bit and use AI efficiently is where they'll kind of achieve growth ultimately.
Yeah, I think so too. And the gap, the space of the gap to close between those who are implementing AI and those who are not, Right now it's still like, I wouldn't say it's head to head. It's very, the people who are using it strategically are getting ahead. But I think in 12 months it's going to be like, dude, if you're not like,
Yeah.
if AI is not native to your workflow now, it's like, bro, like,
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
yeah, yeah, we can't even have a conversation. So, Alex, as we wrap up the conversation, where's a good place for people to reach out to you, inquire, and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, just, just reaching out to me in my LinkedIn profile is
Mm,
probably best. Yeah, I'm happy to kind of like support on any projects where I can help anyone else out. Well, yeah, just sort of, yeah, provide any extra insight on things I'm working on.
yeah, nice. So we will include the LinkedIn in the show notes here. And thank you for a great conversation. The internal linking portion of this is something that, yeah, I haven't heard a lot of people focus as heavily on, but I think you're
Okay.
right. Like there is like it's a very clear hierarchy, and like to understand like the structure and the
Um,
strategy of internal linking and having satellite content that supports, man, I think that can create a competitive edge. So that, along with we'll see the democratization of search. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 12 months?
yeah, no, let's say it's changed so much in the last in 12 months already. So interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to have a follow up conversation in a year.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, Alex. Well, thank you for being a guest on the show. We'll talk to you next time.
That's all right. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure speaking to you, Austin. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.